So I'm recording this before the video starts. Got 110 here, so I'm just going to see what this is. If it would... Fuck's sake. Great. I mean, yeah, it's a gold order, but it's a gold vehicle order, and they're the most useless for me. Like, I'd rather have a fucking gold troop order or a gold weapon order than a gold tank order. Oh well, can't be ungrateful. It's a gold order in the end of the day. Hey guys, Shutter here. I don't think there's a single vehicle in Enlisted that is more considered a noob vehicle than the Stuart. Even tanks like, say, the Panzer II or the T-34-85, you know, which are not at the same levels, aren't considered anywhere near as newbie of a vehicle as the M5A1, because you will see people doing really good plays with the Stuart, with any tank but the Stuart. But why is it? Why is the Stuart considered so universally considered to be just a shit tank, to the point where people will actually make... Like, I've seen people lie about this thing and say, oh, this thing can't do anything, because, let's face it, so I'm just going to... I'll start with the strengths of the Stuart, what some of the things it actually can do, and more point, basically I'm just going to be talking about the Stuart in general and why it's so regarded as a noob vehicle. First and foremost, I'm going to be talking mostly about the Stuart here. The Rhino here, and I think there's another version which I don't actually have, because that was a drops before I even started Enlisted, so... Yeah, but the Rhino, which was from Battle Summer. Yeah, it was from Battle Summer. This thing is alright, okay? This thing's actually pretty good. If I was going to say, I would say this is probably about as good as the Sherman. If not, maybe even better than the Sherman in some regards. It's better at taking out vehicles, definitely, than the Sherman. Not as good as the Scott. The Scott is probably the best for taking out vehicles in this section, but yeah. But we'll go back to the Stuart. What does it have as its advantage? Well, its main advantage is its speed. A max speed, unupgraded, at 56 miles an hour. Making it the joint... Well, it is the fastest... It's the second fastest vehicle behind the Scott. But it kind of has some things that Scott doesn't have. For example, it has more armour. The Scott's armour at the front, if you can see, is actually just... At most is, 50 here. But that's like one bit, and even then, that's like not that good. At most, the armor is about 38, which you can see from the stat card, 38 for whole armor. Whereas the Stuart has 64 at its thickest. Its thickest point is 64, which obviously this is the Rhino version, but even then, 64 around here, which is a lot thicker than the Scott. So it has better armor than the Scott, and it has good speed. It also has some, has two machine guns, so it has a lot more survivability than the Scott in terms of taking out infantry. Also, one thing which is actually not said too often, and I can actually verify this, one, it can take out any Axis tank. Now, most people will be like, what? What are you smoking? It can't take out any Axis tank. I have seen people take out Panthers with this thing, and my friend, I've got a good friend, and she's been able to take out pretty much anything with the Rhino version of the Stuart. But I've seen her take out Panthers. She's shown a screenshot of her taking out a Tiger with one of these. So the whole premise of, oh, the Stuart can't kill the Tiger is completely false. Okay? The Stuart can kill the Tiger. There's a few ways it can kill the Tiger, but again, it's not as good at taking out the Tiger as the other tanks. Like, even the Jumbo is probably better at taking out the Tiger, if you can drive, that is. But the Rhino, and I believe the regular Stuart, can take out the Tiger. So it can take out all Axis vehicles with the correct crew, with the correct driver and the correct gunner. Or, so basically, if you're good with the vehicle, you can take out anything with it. Which is pretty much to be said with other things. But why is it so infamous? Well, the problem with it is that people will see this and they immediately are straight a noob. Because unlike something like the Puma, right? The Puma, you'll find good Puma drivers every now and again. Like, the Puma has that, but most people, you see a Puma, they're not going to be an idiot about it. They're going to be using the Puma's strengths, its speed, and its maneuverability, its decent gun, to their greatest effect. I've seen Puma drivers driving around jumbos and destroying jumbos. Obviously, I showed in my last video that the Puma can destroy a jumbo. The Stuart, though, on the other hand, you don't really see many of these, unless it's the Rhino, which is why I always say, if you see a Rhino Stuart, pray, because they actually are good drivers. But if you see a regular Stuart, just don't worry about it most of the time. Now, even I've fell victim of this. Like I said there, like, when I see a Rhino, I actually do generally think, oh god, this isn't an actual good tanker, take him out immediately. But when I see a regular Stuart, I'm like, it's a Stuart. What's he going to do to me? And mostly that's because, well, another thing is just that people just misuse it as well. That's the another thing. People just misuse the Stuart. Like, I remember back when I made that video when I was talking about a guy's, it was the guy who made that really, really, really horrifically bad take on Enlisted, and I just, called out saying this is a bad take. I remember when one of the things he said was he was just misusing the Stuart, and he basically was given the Stuart stereotype. He was basically doing the Stuart stereotype of someone who doesn't know how to play, kind of like a Lotor Pyro in MVM. Everyone expects them to not know how to play and to be a drain on the economy. Now, like I said, Stuarts can be done well, which is why, I said what they're good at first. But the problem is that most people do not use... They play the Stuart like they should play the Sherman, okay? They play it like they should play the Sherman, they play it like they should play the Jumbo, or the basically any Sherman, or the Tiger, or the Panther, or the Panzer IV. They play it like that, so, which is not entirely at all what it's supposed to do. The same goes with stuff like the Scott and the Wolverine, but it's to a lesser extent with those two, because the Wolverine, people do actually use that correctly most of the time. Same with the Scott, unless they've just gotten the Scott. That's a good way to know if you're against a new tanker. If they're rushing in with the Scott, they're rubbish. If they're staying back and using, support fire, using the Scott for what it's supposed to be, they're a good tanker. The Stuart, on the other hand, doesn't really have this, because most of the times when you see a Stuart, they're just going to suicide charge straight in. And I've seen Stuart drivers literally just blindly drive into a trench. I've seen them drive into a river. I've seen them drive into, into the bunker on swamps. I've seen them drive into, literally just drive into some of the, just the weirdest stuff possible. And you see this and you're like, oh, what are they doing? And you just easily ammo rack them. And that's another thing as well. They try and, like, Stuart, obviously I'm going to reference that video again, where the guy tried taking on I think it was a Panzer III, it might have been a Panzer IV, but he tried to take on that thing at long range with a Stuart. Like, and, of course, the Panzer was obviously angled, and it was at a height advantage. It went about as well as you can expect from just me talking about it. Now, with the Stuart... Now, again, if you use the Stuart correctly, as in basically quick, zipping around the battlefield, quickly harassing the enemy, you can do a lot of good damage with it. The same goes with the Puma. However, if you play it like a Sherman, you're on a one-way ticket straight to the respawn page. And that's the problem with Stuarts, which is actually the thing I said about when I made my Puma video. If you remember my Puma video from a while back, I made the claim that the Puma should not be the starting vehicle because it's too much of a specialised vehicle to, warrant being a starter vehicle. I mean, the Puma is a great vehicle. I mean, I think I put it at like number 6 or 7 on my list when I made my when I made my Normandy tanker video, to around the midpoint. But the problem is that most Pumas are driven by people who don't know how to play the game. And when you see a good Puma, it's actually a bit of a shock. Because the Pumas are just like... Because most Pumas are just really bad. The same goes with the... the same actually goes with the M5, with the Stuart. Because the Stuart just does not really... You know, it's a starter tank, and the problem is most starter tanks aren't the most powerful, and most people who use starter tanks are inexperienced. It's the reason why for example in Tunisia, I've said that the AB and the A13, they're often, not really considered to be much of a threat, because when you see them, they're often being driven by a low-skilled player. Whereas you see something like a Grant, you see something like a Panzer IV in Normandy, you see something like mostly a Jumbo. Most of the times when you see a Jumbo players are often a bit brain-dead anyways. Or you see something like a Tiger, you're legitimately going to be scared, because those are actually good players that have grinded up the thing. And there's a reason why my go-to for taking out a Tiger is to hop in a P47, because that's how, that's the guaranteed way to knock out a Tiger, in my opinion. Just take the P47 and just nuke it to high heaven. Obviously, of course, that's a bit of a cheap tactic, but I digress. The Stuart, again, the problem is you see a Stuart and you think, oh, it's just going to be another very easy to kill tank. You just see it and it's just easy target practice. Especially if you're in something like a Tiger or a Panther. If you see something like a Sherman, most of the times, you think, it's a decent tanker. Unless it's, of course, the Bomb Sherman, in which case, it's kind of really dependent on what kind of, if they bought it early, or they just bought the, I've actually seen a laxative. I don't think I've seen a laxative anyways, but a laxative Scott, so... Yeah, but when you see something like this, if you see a Jumbo, especially a premium Jumbo, most of the times they're either someone who's bought in and aren't that good, or, critically, they're just someone who's just not that good at the game, really, and use the Sherman. Then you have something like the the M10, obviously, which, again, most people who use the M10 are pretty good, but the M10 is just made out of glass. And stuff like that. It's like, with the Stuart, it just doesn't have that thing. Anyways, I'm just going to end the video here. I hope you guys have enjoyed. Leave your thoughts in the comments. What you guys think of the Stuart. Do you think this is what do you guys think, about this? Obviously, of course, I use the Stuart as the example of a tank that's not the best, but, it can be improved. Anyways, I'm going to end the video here. I hope you guys have enjoyed, and I'll see you guys in the next one.